60s and 70s and even into the 80s, many of the towns had their own private landfill. But those facilities started to close. The towns were faced with this position of, now that we've closed the local dump, what do we tell our residents to do with all this material? We don't want them burying it in the backyard. We need to come up with an alternate option.
The atmosphere in the 70s into the 80s was one of go to the local dump, get rid of your waste, and have nice conversations with people while you're there.
By the late 1980s, all of those town landfills had closed, and we were operating strictly at the Solid Waste Management Center in Walton.
The county had already purchased the property down in Walton, the McGibbon farm, and they were using it, and they already had, I think, cells, maybe 1 and 2 had already been constructed.
We were running out of space, so it was very important that we get the solid waste management plan going.
I realized, as did some of the committee members, that we would be at the mercy of landfills out of the county if we went to exporting all of our garbage.
If we could do it, and do it on our own, and do it with our people, we could save money for our residents.
I think the county always believed it should be at the existing site because that's where everything was now, but they had to justify that.
The DEC had said to us, you can't stay there. You're on the West Branch of the Delaware. That's the water supply for New York City. You're on a primary aquifer.
We had to do a siting study at the same time as developing the solid waste management plan to find another site for solid waste management in the county. We scheduled a number of public meetings. No one ever came to them.
The key component of their solid waste management plan that says, let's stay at the Walton Solid Waste Center, really hinged on their ability to convince the Department of Environmental Conservation to permit that facility in the future.
The expense of opening a completely new landfill, that's quite a prospect. So we had to do the siting study, which was a big project. And all of us supervisors, 19 of us, were all in the dark really as the process went on.
We worked with Stearns & Wheeler, and we started to develop a rating system and a matrix to evaluate sites.
It went through these stages of locations, and they were in different towns. And it was always secret to all of us. We didn't know how we fared, how our towns fared.
The landfill siting studies can become, let's say, a little stressful because you're essentially saying we're identifying sites in your town or multiple towns where we may be putting our new landfill.
We, being Charlie Lefevre, who was the chairman of the committee at the time, and myself, toured the county the day before we actually made the announcement and talked to all of the supervisors that had property in the siting study so that they could all at least be aware that we had potential sites in their township and where those sites were.
Wayne came to our home to tell my wife and I that the town of Meredith had actually had 7 of the top 10 sites. And the number 1 site was on Meredale Farms, which is just a mile from our farm on Turnpike Road.
And there were 3 or 4 sites that were deemed most appropriate, one of them being the existing solid waste center. But we had to actually go through analysis and public hearings and presentations on all the sites. And that's where I think the leadership of Delaware County really showed, because it was an excellent opportunity for neighbors to be pitted against neighbors, for things to get really ugly at times.
And so we filed an Article 78 against the state. And we argued and we said, no, it's not a primary aquifer. It's an aquifer, it's a secondary aquifer.
We did the best that we could to convince the state that there wasn't a better site in Delaware County than our current site at Walton. And I think we did a very good job at that, because developing any place else in the county would have a substantial environmental impact on that area. And it really wouldn't help the people of Delaware County because now we'd have 2 sites to maintain.
So then it came down to what was the state going to do? We waited with bated breath, and then we got the word that said, okay, you can stay at your present site. And I brought a bottle of champagne to our committee, and when I popped the cork, it stuck in the ceiling, and that cork was stuck in the ceiling for quite a few years.
Although there were emotions that surfaced, I think that Delaware County Public Works Department, as well as the Public Works Committee and Board of Supervisors, really managed the process quite well. But there was one common conclusion we all had coming out of that siting study. We collectively agreed none of us want to go through this again. It really kind of set the foundation for optimization of that solid waste center.
The next major change after the original siting and development of the Solid Waste Management Center in Walton was the implementation of the composting operation. And that was a big, big change for Delaware County. It was a big, big change for the state of New York because there were no other facilities of that style and design operating in New York at that time, or frankly operating in New York even today.
It takes basically the leftovers after people separate the recyclables. So this is the only one in the state of that level. We have other ones that do yard waste alone or biosolids from wastewater treatment plants, but this is our first and only that does truly this type of material.
When the composting facility was originally conceived, it was an effort to recover the single largest item in our waste stream, which at that time was identified as organics. It includes your food scraps. It also includes tissue paper, plant scraps, all types of materials that you may or may not think of as being readily degradable.
It sounded unreal at the very beginning, but I went with fellow supervisors to Tracy, Canada, and to Sayreville, Tennessee, to look at composting facilities. When that was through, we were convinced that that's probably the best way to go to control and own our own garbage.
Composting was supposed to, over a 25-year period, cost like $98 million, and the exporting of waste was over 25 years was supposed to be $145 million. And when they weighed everything, and then the environmental benefits of composting was also a major point in deciding to go that way.
Ultimately, there were 2 proposals submitted, and we were selected to provide and deliver that project. That was in 1997. I think we were through with construction in the end of 2005. That just gives you an indication of the road that Wayne and Sue had to travel to make this project happen.
What goes in the composting system is basically anything that is not already recycled. So it goes into the head of the plant, the head of the compost facility, and a tipping floor right from the garbage trucks. And then large materials are pulled out.
Once it hits the bioreactor, we got a 3-day retention time. So anything organic will be turned into compost within 3 days. It's typically carrying about 240 tons of garbage in there.
What is not large is then sent through this complex system, which both separates out the stuff that's not compostable and compost. You have a rotating drum that heats up. The system takes weeks to go from the point of being in your trash bag, the organics, to being a compost product.
These are some of the projects that we had. This was a baseball field, the Phoenix Firebirds. If you can see the dark green here, they didn't want to they just want to do this section. Until they got it done, they wished they'd done the rest. Because our grass grew a lot greener, you know? And this is a project up on Interstate 90. It was quite a project.
So you don't have any problem getting rid of this stuff?
Typically not, you know?
We received a $2 million grant from DEC and a very low interest loan from EFC, Environmental Facilities Corp. And we paid it off in 10 years rather than the 20 years. So we're out of debt with the facility.
By going forward with composting, we're going to extend the life of the landfill by over 17 years, and I'm hopeful it's going to go into the 20s or 30 years. And by recycling what's already there, taking some of those other cells, I think they could maintain that facility for years down the road. It's the best investment we've ever made, truly.
Last call, if there's anybody that we know we're waiting for. Okay, so we're to take off. We're going down to landfill. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We take in 50,000 tons a year of total solid waste. True garbage, biosolids from wastewater treatment plants, the recyclable items that we handle, contaminated soils that come in, construction and demolition debris. So that's an all-in number. We're driving up what we affectionately refer to as the highway to heaven. That takes us up to the top access to the landfill. Of that 50,000 tons a year, we actually are only burying less than 20,000 tons. These landfills, the number one environmental liability is groundwater contamination. We have a double liner system underneath. Think of a bathtub inside of a bathtub. That's what the liner system is. That liner system is thicker than we are tall. We move about 5,000 tons a year of total recyclable items, and that includes everything from glass to scrap metal to tires to electronics to cardboard and paper.
That's your pie pans and stuff like that. We're starting to do that. There's a high market value for that because it is virgin.
When I say the recycling market, it means it's going back in and being remanufactured into a new commodity line.
Used to be it was like 20% residuals that didn't go into the landfill that we recycled and marketed.
And now it's what, 70% or something? Or
70 total.
70 comes out.
In 2014, Delaware County made the commitment to build a new recycling facility, a new materials recovery facility. We completed construction in late 2014, and in 2015 we became the full owners and operators. It is an operation that's designed to be able to handle either commingled recyclables or single stream recyclables.
This puts less waste in the landfill because it's a lot easier to sort it out than it was before.
And we're hoping, in fact we're seeing it already, that we're going to experience renewed interest and increased participation in the recycling program as a function of having this newer option of convenience.
Delaware County really is a model because Delaware County's extended the landfill life by many, many years. What we see in other parts of the state is kind of little fits and starts, but Delaware County, it was very impressive in moving forward and having the foresight to kind of go down this road, seeing this is where they should be going. So we really consider it a model for the state and certainly even the country of how it can be done properly.
The entire solid waste facility is funded by a sales tax which was put in place in 1992, plus the general revenues that Sue makes in selling recyclables. It was a really tough decision by the board, but it has paid off many times over.
When I still to this day try to explain to people that there is no solid waste tipping fee in Delaware County, no one believes me.
I'm very proud of them, I really am. Wayne Reynolds, Sue McIntyre, they did a great job bringing this thing together, to fruition for the board. It really it turned out to be the greatest project that I was ever involved with.
I think we have an ideal program here, and so I think we're going to spend maybe 50 years at Walton, and that is a considerable savings. Each year that goes by, it's going to cost you more per ton to put that somewhere else in someone else's backyard. We do not have to deal with that problem.
Landfills are space consumptive. At some point, you just run out of space. When we get to that point where we've run out of space, we are in a very, very expensive, concerning place to be. So if we can keep at our current location, provide that full level of service that we've been providing all along to our residents, then we've done a real service to our future generations, to the folks down the road who are going to inherit this, to know that they're not inheriting a time bomb, they're inheriting a real asset, something that's going to provide their ongoing services for generations to come.